The Chicago Bulls are an absolute tire fire, and we're going to continue our series about remaking this team and tearing it down because that's the best thing for them to do. They currently sit 12th in the Western Conference with a 9-14 record. They can only seemingly win when Zach LaVine doesn't play, and of course now he's out for quite some time, conveniently out until about the middle of January when a bunch of Lakers players become trade eligible, which I find a little fascinating. So in this video, what are we going to do? We're going to talk about Nikola Vucevic trades, and for me specifically, I feel like I have some issues when it comes to figuring out Nikola Vucevic trades, because if I was GMing a team right now, he would be at the very bottom of my list of players I would want to trade for. I would not be sending out any type of assets to get Nikola Vucevic. I would consider bringing him in some type of like salary readjustment where you're sending out an expiring contract or a player that's not in your long-term plans. Or maybe you're dumping some salary and then maybe you're giving up a couple second round picks to do that. That's what I would value. Now, I don't necessarily think that's the exact same way other GMs will value it. I think a great example is when Arturas Karnisovas traded for Nikola Vucevic. I told you right here on YouTube how bad that trade was going to be for the Chicago Bulls. Bulls fans told me I was delusional. They also told me I was delusional when I said picking Patrick Williams over Tyrese Halliburton was going to be disastrous. Listen, Bulls fans and I haven't agreed on a lot of things, but what I do know is right now the Bulls are not very good, and they've done a lot of things different from what I would have done. Now, it doesn't mean I'm always right, but I think with a lot of the Bulls' decisions, I could have told you it was headed toward a bad pathway, and that's exactly what it has done so far. As you see, 12th in the Western Conference, they just haven't been that good. So we're going to look at 3 trades. I tried to conjure up the best deals I could. Now, listen, I had to do a lot of maneuvering to make this work. There's not a lot of interest around the league, in my opinion, for Nikola Vucevic. I don't think his playstyle fits very well for playoff basketball. I don't think he's a guy who's going to bring about a lot of winning for whatever team acquires him. But I think if there's the right package in place, teams will at least consider it because he is still a talented player. He puts up numbers. He rebounds the ball very well, which is a really good skill to have in today's league, especially from a center. So I think for the Bulls specifically, you have to be pretty much really accepting of, hey, the market's not going to be that strong for him. We're not going to get back what we gave up for him, clearly, because the Magic absolutely robbed the Bulls point blank in that deal. There's no question about it, but it's the way that it is. If you guys do enjoy this video, first of all, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content. If you've wondered where I've been the last week, I was really under the weather, so I completely rested, took pretty much a whole week off, and just slept. That's what I did mostly in the past week, and you can probably still hear it in my voice. I'm a little raspy right now, but I am feeling a bit better, which is why I wanted to get back to the recording. And let's jump into it here with our first trade, and of course it's to my Dallas Mavericks. And this is a trade that if the Mavericks made, I would say, whoa, what are we doing here? I don't know if this is really the right move, because the Mavericks have had a renaissance at the center position with Derek Lively. Now, there have been some significant flaws still with the Mavericks roster construction. One of that is they're very reliant on a 19-year-old rookie center when it comes to trying to compete with Nikola Jokic and some of the other best teams in the Western Conference. Maybe look at the Timberwolves, Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns. The Mavericks just don't match up that well, in my opinion, in terms of keeping other teams off the glass. They just do not rebound the basketball very well. So in this trade, what do they get? They get 2 really good high-volume rebounders. Vucevic is still a very good rebounder. He's very strong, and he does give you a low-post scoring option, which I think the Mavericks could use. Kyrie Irving is out right now with an injury. Doesn't seem like he's going to miss too much time, luckily, but the reason he's injured is because Dwight Powell was on the floor. We can't have that anymore in Dallas. Dwight Powell cannot play. So Nikola Vucevic and Andre Drummond would solve that. I think Drummond would be a really nice addition in here as well. There were some rumors Drummond might be headed to the Mavericks this past offseason anyway. Then he ended up staying with the Bulls, and it's kind of a done story now, but maybe the Mavericks can reopen it up and find a way to increase their center depth without having to part with their 2027 first-round pick. And I know Bulls fans are going to say, oh my gosh, this is a robbing. Listen, no, it's not. Okay, Nikola Vucevic robbed you guys already when, first of all, he took the contract you guys offered him. I wouldn't want Nikola Vucevic for the next 3 years, to be completely honest with you. And it's not necessarily about whether or not he's a good player. I think he is a good player, but $20 million is a lot of money with the new CBA to give a player when you're not sure if he's going to have a massive impact on winning games for you. And that's kind of the flaw I see right now with the way the Bulls are built. They've got a lot of money committed to guys who don't help them win a ton of games, and their styles don't really fit, and they're not maybe the best players for the year 2023-2024 when it comes to the way the game is played, game theory in general. I think Vucevic is an example of that. So for this trade, I'm not sure if I love this for the Mavericks, to be honest. You might say, well, this is kind of minimal compensation they're giving up here, and you'd be right. This is really the only way I could see some type of deal here making sense for Dallas, where you give up Rashawn Holmes. He's that salary filler that I was talking about, where, look, you're fine with dumping his contract. Maxi Kleber, he hasn't played his best basketball in recent memory, but I still think Maxi is a solid player. He can stretch the floor. He can guard across multiple positions as a big man, which is valuable. I think the Mavericks have found a ton of success historically with Maxi, and I think at times you could argue he's maybe one of the better fits around Luka Doncic on the roster with his ability to step out behind the three-point line. He's kind of the nice piece you're giving up here that other teams would have interest in. Teams would look to acquire Maxi Kleber at the deadline in some type of three-team deal here where the Bulls would send Kleber to a third team. Then you get two young prospects. Omax Prosper, a player who the Mavericks just took 24th overall in the most recent draft in 2023. He's an intriguing four-man. He's got all the athletic traits. He's a really good transition play finisher. Offensively, that's about all he's going to give you right now, but the defense is very real. He can guard up and down a lineup. He's athletic. And like I said, in transition, he's an absolute weapon. So you're kind of taking a raw player here if you're Chicago, and then you're taking a player with who I still think has immense upside. He just doesn't really have a large leash right now, or a long leash in Dallas. Jason Kidd kind of has harnessed Jaden Hardy down into a shell of what he can be. Jaden Hardy's a guy who can absolutely fill it up. I think Jaden Hardy could honestly be at some point in the NBA a 20-point per game scorer. Now, it doesn't mean his team's going to win a lot with him in that role, but he's got the skill set to do that. He's got the shot creation tools to do that. And I think if you put him into a situation like Chicago where it's a clear rebuild, they're trying to tear apart the roster, I think Jaden Hardy could be like an unearthed gem that they're finding in this deal, because he's a player who, second round pick, 37th overall, really savvy move by the Mavericks to get him on draft night when they did. I had a very high draft grade on him. I think he's a very good player. I think there's a lot of tools. Now, defensively, he's really rough and raw. That's going to help the Bulls lose right now. It's going to help them with their own draft positioning for not only this year, but future years. But maybe, just maybe, with a little bit more usage, higher utilization, more in-game reps, you can find something with Jaden Hardy that long-term, 2-3 years from now, he might be the best player in this entire trade. Nikola Vucevic, I think, is on a downward trend. Andre Drummond has not been the player we've been accustomed to seeing him be for the last 4 or 5 years. So this is really not a lot for the Bulls to give up, in my opinion. They're actually dumping Vucevic's salary, and they're getting off of an expiring in Drummond. That doesn't really matter one way or another. The Mavericks sure up their rebounding. Does cost them some second-round picks here for Dallas. Also cost them some young prospects in Omax Prosper and Jaden Hardy. Those are really the pivot points in the deal for Chicago, where they get some guys that they can believe in. Maxi Kleber could get routed to a third team. This is about as good as it gets, honestly, in my opinion. For Chicago, I have a couple of other trade packages, though, that maybe you could argue the compensation is just as good or maybe even a little bit better. And one of them is with the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, this one, again, is a little interesting. We have an extra piece in this deal from the Bulls. We actually have Alex Caruso in here, so you might see the package from the Lakers and say, whoa, that's a lot more than the Mavericks were giving up. That's because you're getting a really valuable player in Alex Caruso, where the reports right now are saying that the Bulls don't want to give him up. And I completely understand why, because he's a valuable player. He's good. He's hard to find another one of. But if you're Chicago, you do have to trade him. You have to maximize his value right now. Keeping a 29-year-old Alex Caruso isn't going to help the Bulls rebuild. In my opinion, I just don't see a way that that's going to be super beneficial, because as the team starts to turn the corner, Caruso is going to be about 32, 33. I just don't see the long-term benefit for them. I am a believer in keeping talent when you have it. I think keeping talent is a good plan, good strategy. I just don't think Caruso fits into that situation right here for the Bulls. And you give up Nikola Vucevic to the Lakers. So you're giving up two of your starters, two of your best players on the roster right now. If you're Chicago, again, this helps you with the rebuild. You also get Rui Hachimura, who's kind of settled into his own in the last year or so. Playing off of LeBron has definitely helped him. But I think, in Chicago, maybe a higher usage, higher volume could get back to some of what we saw back when he was playing in Spokane, Washington, with Gonzaga, where he was a mid-post threat and he was a mid-range scorer. Now, it's not going to be good for winning a lot of NBA games, but I think Hachimura could put up numbers. And if you're a Bulls fan, I think Rui could be a nice starting piece in a trade for you. Really, the whole point of this deal, though, is you're getting that 2029 first-round pick. You're also getting Gabe Vincent, who I do believe is still a solid player. He hasn't played that way for the Lakers, in and out of the rotation a bit, health-wise, everything like that. And this deal can't actually get finalized until January 15th. You might be seeing on there failed. Well, it's because of the salary increase for Rui. So you have to wait until January 15th, which is just over a month from today. So, it's not really that long of a wait. This is right when the trade season is going to really start warming up. A month from now, teams are going to really be looking at the market, seeing what they can get. And this is a deal that I think makes sense for the Bulls because you're getting 3 second-round picks, you're getting a 2029 first-rounder, you're getting a young player who has value around the league in Rui Hachimura that other teams maybe would want to jump in on, try and acquire in a deal because he has length, size, a little bit of defensive ability. And then you're also getting Gabe Vincent, who I think could be a nice, quick reclamation project. Hasn't had a great start to this season, but I still believe in him just like I did a year ago when he was playing for the Miami Heat. I still think he's that same quality level player. It's not like he all of a sudden got worse. Sometimes it just comes down to role, usage, utilization, and comfortability, especially in a new situation. Not everyone settles in right away. So this is a good chance for the Bulls to get a guy that's nice. And for the Lakers, with Vucevic, it kind of helps you play Anthony Davis at the 4 a little bit more frequently. And I think one big thing about getting Vuce is if you're going to play him at center, you have to have some type of freak defensive athletic 4 next to him. For the Mavericks, they don't really have that. They had, Grant Williams, Derek Lively, which kind of mitigates the Vucevic risk, in my opinion, for them. For the Lakers, you have Anthony Davis. That goes a long way. For our third team, you'll see another example where Vucevic can kind of settle in as the center, and you have an athletic defensive-minded 4 next to him that solves some things, solves some issues. But really the big thing for the Lakers is getting Caruso here as well. I think you're just building into your defensive identity if you're the Lakers. Caruso, one of the better perimeter defenders in the league. I think you have an infrastructure around Vuce where he can be a nice offensive go-to weapon for you when LeBron is resting in games that Anthony Davis maybe misses, gives you a little bit more half-court offensive stability, and you have the defensive core around him to probably still find success regardless, which is why I think this deal does actually make some sense for the Lakers. Again, I'm trying to be as creative as possible here in figuring out some of these deals, and this is one that does make some sense to me on paper, although again, I wouldn't probably be in the market trading for Nikola Vucevic right now. I think the Lakers, their style of play makes some sense at least. And our third trade here, this is one I actually like quite a bit, and it's with the Memphis Grizzlies. So now you might be saying, whoa, this is a lot to give up for Nikola Vucevic. It really isn't. That 2024 first is actually just swap rights via Phoenix or Washington, so it's really not an asset. Honestly, it's like very, very small end asset, like really tiny, basically not a thing. So you don't have to worry about the swap rights there as much. But, with the way the Grizzlies have played this year, I mean, Nikola Vucevic would help them turn it around. One of the big flaws with Memphis this season has been the absence of, consistent real center play because of their injuries. Steven Adams has been injured. You've also, obviously had no Brandon Clark. So those two guys being out has been a massive flaw for this team because it's moved Jaren Jackson to the 5 a lot. Now, obviously, he's played a little bit with Xavier Tillman as well, but they need a better center. And Vucevic, specifically as a defensive rebounder, would be great for them. Help them kind of get back to their identity of being able to rebound the basketball, move Jaren Jackson back to a roamer, let him kind of be that defensive piece that we've seen him be, where he's not an anchor, he's a shot blocker. And there's a big difference. And to be honest, I don't think Jaren Jackson Jr. should have been the Defensive Player of the Year last year. I think this year is a big indication as to why, honestly. Obviously everyone's going to point to the Ja absence, but I think there's a lot more things at play than just Ja Morant missing the first 25 games of this season. I think that the fact of the matter is Jaren Jackson Jr. is not a center, and he's not an anchor to a defense, and he's not a good enough rebounder to do that, which is why I don't think he should have been the depoy last year. But I think getting a guy like Vucevic in there allows you to move Jaren back to what he's really great at. And I'm not trying to discredit Jaren Jackson Jr. He's very, very great in a specific defined role. And the entire point of this trade for Memphis is to get him back into that role and give you a little bit more offensive punch with Nikola Vucevic in the fold. Think back to when they had Jonas Valanciunas. They started finding a lot of success with JV in the middle. Vucevic is kind of Jonas Valanciunas upgraded a little bit. I think Vucevic is a more reliable offensive player, shoots the ball better than Valanciunas does. I think a better passer than Valanciunas. And because of that, the Grizzlies have something here if they went out with Nikola Vucevic. One of the few examples of a situation that I actually like Nikola Vucevic getting traded into. And for the Bulls, what are you getting? Well, you're getting shorter term contracts. Zaire Williams is kind of a reclamation project, former lottery pick. Maybe you can pull something out of him there. He's athletic, lengthy, I think needs some time to develop yet. His shot's really streaky. I don't know if you could trust him in a game you're trying to win, but luckily, again, the Bulls aren't going to be trying to win a lot of games if they do sell off their roster. Luke Kennard gives you some shooting. I think one big thing too, when you're trying to implement these young guys and you're going to focus on development, one of the best things you want is shooting around those guys. Make their lives easier by stretching the court. Put a gravity shooter like Luke Kennard out there, who is one of the better three-point shooters in the NBA. Now, he's got a ton of flaws. He's not a great individual basketball player, but he's a solid enough one that I think you can merit him playing next to young guys. And if he's shooting well enough, you might find a trade market for him in a couple of months or down the road a year from now as an expiring contract. You also get a second round pick in here, and you get off of Vucevic's money. That's really, I think, a big win here for the Bulls if you're able to execute something like this. You also, I think long term, you're just looking at, hey, what young player can we buy in on? What cheap, not long-term salary can we get? Luke Kennard is an example of that here, and I think he actually does provide a little bit of value in this trade. And then you're also getting small draft compensation. That's really what the package is going to look like for the Chicago Bulls in a deal that, if they're doing really well, that's what it's going to ultimately end up looking like. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Let me know down below what Nikola Vucevic trade was your favorite. Let me know what other trades. Maybe I missed a team that would make some sense for Nikola Vucevic. I feel pretty confident about especially the last two, the Lakers and Grizzlies, as options for Vucevic. I think the Grizzlies were really the best option in this video. If you guys did enjoy, again, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content. Go give us a follow on Twitter, links in the description for that, as well as go join the Discord. We talk a lot of NBA basketball, college basketball. We talk about everything in that Discord, so you're going to want to be in there. I'm in there all the time chatting it up with everybody, so make sure to go in there. If you're a Chicago Bulls fan, I'm sorry. It's been a tough season for you guys, but hopefully this video made you feel a little bit better about your long-term future. Thanks again, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.